evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, the largest single-screen drive-in in the United States. We're certainly glad you could be with us this evening, and don't forget the concession stand is open with all kinds of great things to eat and drink.
.3 Mahoning Drive-In Radio. Your old friend Virgil back once again with my main man Mark. Say hello, my friend.
Hello, my friend.
Well played. We're coming off of a really great week, a memorable week for sure. But we wanted to jump in here and go over some really fun stuff that we got for you guys as well. A lot of great response about the podcast. The last podcast was listened to, I think, more than any other, right, Mark?
Yes, shockingly. I think it's a matter of how we're sharing this and getting it out there. But usually it takes a number of weeks for a podcast to be one of our top 5 most played. And last week's podcast shot to the top in a week, which is amazing. And we thank everybody literally from all over the world who has been listening to this. The fact that there's somebody in the Philippines or Germany or anywhere else who has an interest in anything we have to say is very exciting and heartwarming.
Absolutely. And coming off of a weekend that was a family-friendly affair, and then coming off of last night for Killer Clowns, you wouldn't believe the amount of kids that were there. It was awesome. So the family for sure is growing, and this is an extension of that, to be able to, even when you're not at the theater, enjoy the Mahoning. So we're having a blast.
To bask in our sparkling personalities and witty repartee. Mostly, I think it's cool. This is the kind of thing I'd like to listen to if there's a theater I liked or any kind of a thing that I liked, is to find out the nuts and bolts of what makes it tick and what's going on behind the scenes and our own personal stories. And now that we have the ability, if we haven't mentioned it yet, because we've only been going for 2 minutes, we have the ability now, if you go to our Anchor page, which is anchor.fm/Mahoning Drive-In, there's the ability for listeners or anybody to just leave a message for us. And we're encouraging people to leave messages for us with your own drive-in memories or stories or thoughts. What drive-in did you go to as a kid? What drive-in do you go to now, wherever you are? Did you work at a drive-in? Do you have stories like we do? Feel free to go to that website and leave those messages. It's really right there in the main page if you go to our Anchor page. So it's not just going to be the staff at the Mahoning going forward. It could be literally anybody in the world joining in here.
That's great. That really makes this an extension, again, the communal situation that we have going on for the Mahoning, to be able to literally hear from the fans. So this last weekend, let's get into it. We had Thanksgiving. What did you think? You were there both nights. Did you watch the movies both nights?
I only was able to watch one movie because at the last minute, I try not to do things by the seat of my pants. It's not the kind of guy that I am, but more often than not, I do things by the seat of my pants. You were set to be a DJ. For anybody who doesn't come out to our theater, we have a literal professional radio station DJ booth from the 50s tucked into the corner of the projection booth. And somebody every night that we're open will do a live DJ set from, when we open to when the films start and then during intermission. And it was going to be Virgil playing, tracks from Tom Hanks soundtracks. And at the last minute, he said, I've got little Virgie. Do you want to sit in? And I'm never one to say no to a DJ set, even if I'm completely unprepared. So it wasn't as bad as when I jumped in for Cobra, where I literally had nothing prepared and we had no internet. So I was just pulling whatever tracks happened to be on my hard drive off. Probably the most eclectic set anybody will ever hear there. So for Hanks, I'm like, okay, great, I'll do it. And I just started looking up Tom Hanks movies, and there aren't that many songs that just leap into your brain when you think of Tom Hanks movies. There's a few, but most of his films tend to be an orchestral score, and the songs are sort of in the background. So the majority of Friday, when we ran A League of Their Own and Sleepless in Seattle on film, I was playing whatever I could grab. I was like literally building the playlist. As a song was playing, I was adding the next 2 songs. And Nancy was there on her phone saying, this song was in that movie, and that's, and I was adding it. But I also just took requests from the staff, which was a lot of fun. I leaned sort of into the 80s because that's when I first really came to know who Tom Hanks was. That's when Tom Hanks really first gained fame. And so it was sort of a mix of 80s and songs from Tom Hanks movies. And then I was using YouTube to play the original TV ads for the various movies chronologically. So you sort of got a sense of his career that way. So that was fun. I didn't get to see anything other than the DJ booth. I wasn't really interested in the films. I'd seen Sleepless in Seattle in the theater when it came out. And my favorite moment is that moment where they're sitting around the table and Rita Wilson has just gotten teary talking about how much An Affair to Remember moves her. Affair to Remember is the movie that Sleepless in Seattle is kind of based on. And then it's in reaction, it's Tom Hanks and what's his name? I can't think of his last name. Anyway, the other actor, they start talking the same way about the Dirty Dozen, and they start choking up about Trini Lopez and Jim Brown, and it cracks me up every time. So that was the moment, luckily, I was able to see. After I did my DJ set and I hung out and I did some other work on the theater, I decided to, head back to the hotel before Sleepless was over. And it happened to be that moment as I was walking to my car. So there was a little bit of fog on the grounds, and it made the projector beam like that razor sharp shaft of light hitting the screen. Didn't really obscure the image. And I'm walking into a, unfortunately, mostly empty lot because a lot of folks left after the first movie. And I just was able to kind of look up on a fairly nice night and hear that line or two that made me laugh out loud and then continue to my car. The second night, I was able to be a little bit more prepared and did another DJ set, but I really did not want to miss The Money Pit. It's a movie that I have not seen since it was on cable back in the 80s. And I remember being really funny. And I have to say, that movie is hilarious.
Oh my gosh, I was belly laughing up front.
I could hear you. I was just sitting in my car and I was laughing my head off, keeping it clean for the kids. And it's so funny. And it's wacky and absurdist, which I did not remember. I just remembered the real slapstick sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's a remake of a 40s film, Mr. Blandings Built His Dream House, with Cary Grant, which is really funny too. But this really kicks it up a notch into the 80s. And it's, as Carl pointed out, Leslie West from Mountain is in it in drag as this leader of an all-male drag band, and they want to change their name. And they keep saying Meryl Streep, and we were trying to figure out what it is because it's clearly overdubbed. And Carl was telling me that. And even on the big screen, it's like I have to pull it up at home and like keep playing that over and over again to see what they originally said. My guess is that he's probably said something pretty offensive that would have kept it from being a PG movie or a PG-13.
It was still a funny gag that the band wanted to call themselves Meryl Streep.
Meryl Streep. Oh yeah, the movie is. We don't talk enough probably about movies on this podcast, but my highest recommendation is that if you have not seen The Money Pit, or if you have not seen it in a long time, get your hands on The Money Pit because it's really, really funny. And that was the only one I got to see all weekend. So 10 minutes later, my answer to, did you get to see any of the movie is, yeah, The Money Pit was good.
Hey, we're meant to be long-winded. This is a podcast.
Got to fill that hour out.
That's right. Yeah, it was a really great time. I got to see most of the movies. Sleepless, it was kind of foggy and the weather wasn't fantastic on Friday, but still a really nice turnout for the whole entire weekend. But I think the cherry on top for both of us, without a doubt, was Sunday. We did the return of Spaghetti Sunday for a few dollars more. And boy, oh boy, Leone up on that massive Mahoning screen is nothing short of breathtaking, right?
You try not to be, too bombastic in how we talk about our love of film and the experience there. And people are just like, yeah, you're just trying to sell the place. I'm not a churchy guy, but there are certain movies that when you're able to see them on the big screen in the right atmosphere, it's kind of like a profound or moving experience. And I kind of feel that way about the Leone films, all four of them that he did as Westerns. They're so good. And the acting is so good. And the editing and the music and just the vibe is so solid. You could have heard a pin drop on that lot once the movie started, and everybody was so into it. And they look so good. Those prints are beautiful that we've been getting. And I think you said our understanding is that for the Dollars trilogy, they're all newish prints, right?
Yeah, absolutely. For our 35 millimeter heads. The story I always heard, because I requested it literally every year since 2014, trying to get the trilogy. And what I was told was there's no usable prints. They were all damaged beyond repair. And the story I heard about The Good, Bad, and the Ugly is that the theater that had it last left it on top of a radiator, and it actually like melted the film down. So like it's that type of stuff where you're like, oh my goodness. And I said it on the air, you're right, about how rare it is that any studio decides to restrike a 35 millimeter print.
At this point, there's not a lot of probably financial benefit to doing it. How many theaters are left that run 35?
Right. But I imagine that is one that they get requested constantly. And it just makes sense. On a preservation angle, it just makes sense to not have any playable prints of one of the most classic Western trilogies out there is pretty crazy. So
the last time I saw Good, Bad, the Ugly was when it had its, I want to say 50th anniversary, when they added a few scenes back in and they sort of redubbed some scenes that didn't have the dialogue elements intact, or that maybe Clint Eastwood never actually dubbed. And I wonder if that's what we're getting, if we're getting that slightly longer version or the original. I did notice for a few dollars more, it sounded like it had an upgraded audio mix, because there were certain moments where the sound effects were extremely crisp. Like they were crisper than the dialogue and music and everything else. And that's something that purists get a little annoyed with when things get new remasterings on home video, is that I know at one point for one of the Leone Westerns, or all of them, I don't know if it was the MGM DVD or the Blu-ray or what, they had replaced the sound of the pistols firing. And the people who are the hardcore spaghetti Western fans, you know what that sound is. It's got a very specific sound to the guns in that movie, and it had changed, and people were just like outraged. So I didn't outrage me what I was hearing. It was just noticeable to me that certain, it was upgraded for a modern sound system for like an indoor theater with 5.1 or surround sound or Dolby or whatever. But it just makes me curious what we're going to get. It didn't detract from the experience. It was just, I was just like, oh, that explosion's a little crisp.
Yeah, it is. It's almost like in E.T. when they replaced the guns with walkie-talkies.
Right.
You want to see the film that came out and you saw when you were a kid. But it's seeing that up on the massive screen. There's so many memories I have with Leone. I was on the mic that night and I did pretty much mostly Morricone tracks.
I loved
Nothing
it.
but Morricone tracks. So, that catalog runs insanely deep. So tried to hit on a lot of stuff. I took a note from you with taking the request. That's a really great angle, because everybody on the crew, when you were taking those requests, had a request. They reached out and said, hey, can you play this? Can you play that? And it really does give that kind of sense of our crew's tastes.
And not all of them are going to want to or have the ability to sit down at the mic and the wheels of steel and spin, which I love whenever anybody does it, to get their sense of musical taste and knowledge and what their personality is like on the microphone and their banter. I enjoyed doing it. I mean, I initially did it because I had no idea what I was going to play and I needed all the help I could get. But everybody's choices were really interesting. Some of the music I knew, some of it I didn't. Everybody was happy to hear it. And when you have, Spotify, you don't have everything. It's like Netflix. It's far from everything, but there's quite a bit to choose from. So I was thrilled that anything anybody asked for, I was able to pull right up, and it would always be like the next song. And another thing I wanted to mention about Thanksgiving weekend, I loved it when people would poke their heads into the DJ booth and ask if they could get a shout out, because it was a special occasion. On Friday, we had a couple, I think it was Mark and Liz, who were celebrating the next day would have been the 1 year anniversary of them getting engaged at our theater, which was opening weekend 2020. We had, I'm sorry if I don't remember everyone's names. We had a couple that was celebrating their 20-year wedding anniversary with us at the drive-in on Saturday, and that was great. We had a mother come in whose son had turned 7 the day before, and was a huge fan and wanted us. She asked, if we could give him a shout out. And I said, sure. What kind of music does he like? I'll play a song for him. And she was going back and forth. She's like, well, he likes horror movies, so he's part of our crowd. And what's that song in Nightmare on Elm Street? And Carl was next to us, and he said Dream Warriors, and she said, oh, he'd love Dream Warriors.
Say so no more Dokken.
Dedicating a Dokken tune from Nightmare on Elm Street 3 to a 7-year-old on the lot. And apparently this, I think it was Zach, this 7-year-old is in the documentary at the drive-in.
Yes.
Now on Amazon Prime. And he was a baby in that documentary. Like the mother is holding the child next to, I guess, whoever was Dorothy for The Wizard of Oz one season 7 years ago. And 7 years later, they're still coming regularly, which is just great. So if you're somebody who comes to the drive-in, if you want to contact us ahead of time and you want the DJ or Jeff during the announcements to say hi to somebody on the special day, please do it. We love being able to do that. And if it makes somebody happy, all the better.
Oh yeah, that warms our heart for people to come out and spend a special occasion or commemorate something with us. It takes it back to that story that Jeff told about his favorite drive-in experience, coming and spending his birthday with his parents. That's memories that I know people won't soon forget. And, kind of steamrolling into last night with Killer Clowns from Outer Space screening, there were so many kids and so many newbies that were coming in, and it was great because the film can had a hype sticker on it, which
I've never seen that before.
Me either. And it was so cool. Everybody that came in, I said, do you want to hold the film can? Check this out. Everybody was so excited about it. But we got tons of great pictures with people, so much love from people saying, I've been following you for years, and this was my opportunity to bring the kids out and all that stuff. So it's a great kind of crossover movie. Are you a fan of Killer Clowns?
I've loved Killer Clowns since I first saw it. My friends and I rented it on tape back in high school, and we just thought it was funny and wacky and imaginative and just a visual feast. And it's always been one that I loved. I ran it. I used to do a horror host show called Saturday Fright Special that was on all over the place, and we did indoor 35 millimeter retro screenings with retro trailers and a lot of like what we do now. And we ran Killer Clowns, and we were able to borrow some mannequins that a local haunted house had, indoor haunted attraction, and they had the pro masks for the clowns. So we set those up in the lobby, and I played circus music before the show. We had cotton candy at the snack bar, and that was another show where it's a PG-13 movie. I mean, there's profanity and there's a little bit of salaciousness and a little bit of grue in there, but being that it has that look and that sense of fun, it really is not bad for kids. So part of me is like laughs a little when you say a lot of kids came out, but then the other part of me is like, no, that totally makes sense.
It's an easy pill to swallow. That's same with me. I was younger, but definitely grabbed it off the video store shelf, begged my mother for us to rent it. And it's just, it washes over you. It's such a creative, weird movie, even though it's very much like a takeoff on The Blob, which we played earlier this year.
And I was a big fan of The Blob too. So when I first saw that opening scene, I'm like, oh, I see what they're doing. This is really great.
Pooh Bear, where's my Pooh Bear?
Royal Dano, he was a great, like, weird old guy. There's that category of actor, that guy. And Royal Dano, he's one of those guys you see, and it's like the line in Back to the Future. It's like, Christ, did he ever have hair? It's like, was this guy ever young? He was just like, you go back to the 50s, and he's looks. I think it's just the way he talked and the way his face was, but he's a guy that always made me happy to see, and the fact that they got him for that was just great.
Yeah, so many great quotable lines. The audience was literally excited out of their pants, and tons of love as far as the t-shirts and stuff like that. People just really, really love this movie. It's the perfect kind of cult movie. And we had some great additions to the snack bar and to the merch table as well. The kids came up with a cotton candy topped burger,
which sounds horrifying.
On paper, that sounds like, what the hell's going on? But it was such a hit. We could not hold on to these things.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. I know you normally are the one who gets to taste test a lot of the specials because you're posting them to the social medias.
If I'm there, yeah. Usually they'll set up a photo, or I'll take the photo, and then I'll be the first person to get a taste of it because they've made it for the display. So it's like, can I have it now? But I was unfortunately I wasn't there last night. But friends said that it was surprisingly good.
It was such a strange thing. We had a little pie as well, and they did a little popcorn special, which was awesome. You got to try the one for Thanksgiving though.
Oh, I did. The Thanksgiving special. It was a modification of what has been more and more popular in a lot of restaurants the last few years. It was basically, like Thanksgiving on a bun. Turkey burger, gravy, mashed potatoes, stuffing, cranberry sauce on a bun. It was really messy, but I was making untoward noises when I ate it. I kept telling people that on the radio. I was just like, oh, it was really good. And a lot of the staffers had it. Jess had one too. I just kept telling everybody, eat it over the boat that it comes in because it's messy, but it's, oh boy, that you had one of those and you didn't need anything else for a while.
Yeah, that's a lot of people's kind of favorite part about coming is just like, it's like, what culinary treat are we going to have tonight? What weirdness are they going to pull out of their hat? And it's the creativity, That
began as a secret menu item. We still call it a secret menu item, even though we advertise the hell out of it. So it really isn't a secret menu item, but I like the idea of the conundrum in that title. It started a goofing. It was Andrew, who doesn't work with us anymore, but Andrew in the snack bar when he was head of the culinary division of the drive-in. he was putting things together for somebody else there, and he just stacked up a bunch of things we had in the warmer, and we tried it and we're like, this isn't bad. So initially a lot of the secret menu items were just, how many ways can we combine what's already in the warmer?
Yeah.
And one of the most astounding, and I should remember and post this on Patreon, one of the photos that I most loved that I took when I was working the register, it was called The Great Scott, and it was for the first or second time we ran Back to the Future, and it was quite literally everything we had in the food warmer on a bun. So it was burger, chicken burger, mozzarella sticks, fries, maybe something else. It was hard to get in your mouth. You had to tamp it. There was an amount of tamping involved to get that thing in your mouth. But we've since evolved beyond that with bringing in other ingredients. Like when we do for Zombie Fest, we have the Zomburger, which is like a spicy sloppy Joe that's sort of made to look like brains. That was another Andrew creation that has sort of become an annual tradition. But the gang in the snack bar, they have fun coming up with that stuff, and it's fun to help name it. And I like now that we take a picture in front of the poster, which is kind of cool. But it's always something. If you ever come to our drive-in and you don't follow us on social media, be sure to stop into the snack bar and just see what's special that night. It doesn't happen every single night, but more often than not, especially if we think it's going to be a well-attended show, we'll have something in there.
Hungry? Then here's a flavor hit. Enjoy tasty pit-cooked barbecue sandwiches with the big flavor of the barbecue pit. Castleberries cooks them long and slow over hickory coals that cook with a glow. Then zesty barbecue sauce is added to these lean cuts of meat to make your Castleberries pit-cooked barbecue sandwiches the tastiest kind of treat. They're delicious with French fries and your favorite soft drinks. Visit our snack bar now. You'll always find Castleberry's pit-cooked barbecue and other good things to eat at our snack bar.
That's a nice segue into this weekend was our first weekend having the concession stand back open for over a year. And it went amazing.
Fender Bomb, the snack bars open. Yes, it was, we soft tested that on a couple of Tunnel Vision Tuesday nights. Killer Clowns was a Tunnel Vision Tuesday, by the way, this amazing series that Exhumed Films does on 35 on every Tuesday, where they just play these jaw-droppingly amazing films. We had started it, the first official night we were open going forward was for Cobra. That's when we said, okay, from now on we're open. And it was a lot of cleaning because the snack bar had been closed due to the pandemic, where we were just having one set of doors. You would order and pay, the other set of doors, you would pick your food up. And it was a very efficient system, but people couldn't come in and see the cool decor or the merch or the amazing, something else I'm going to post on Patreon, the amazing menu boards that Sheila and Diego came up with for us. We used to just have these menu boards that said, burger this price, popcorn this price. And they designed and created these amazing shine through plastic menu boards that are all themed from various film logos or film themes. And they're just
like works of art. They're really amazing.
Brilliant. So people were poking their heads in and seeing that stuff for a year and a month or two. And people were saying when we announced it would be open, they were so excited to finally get inside there. Some people had no idea because they started coming last season that you could even go inside the snack bar, period.
Yeah, that was awesome.
We've sold so many records. We have records.
Oh my God.
Virgil and I are now trying to, freshen them up and update them and take out the stuff that's likely not going to sell or too beat up. But people were walking out with inches of albums the last couple days. And the VHS wall is accessible again. You can enter the projection booth and say hello and get a tour from within the snack bar. There's some seating in there. We're not encouraging a lot of gathering or large group gathering, but I mean, if it's light in there and you want to sit down and eat your food inside, you actually can. Thanks to the donated furniture from Faye and Tank left over from our Lynch photo op. We have 4 really nice chairs and swanky lamps in there now.
Classy. But yeah, it's been really nice to have everybody come in and enjoy it and really kind of get the full Mahoning experience again. And, again, going back to last night where it felt just so kind of communal. That's the thing I love about the Tuesdays is even though we had a really big crowd last night, it's very intimate, because obviously, less people come on Tuesdays than come on the weekends traditionally. It takes us back to like the old days almost, it kind of feels like 2015 or something like that. And yeah, as far as last night, obviously a ton of Kyoto Brothers love. People absolutely go bonkers for Killer Clowns from Outer Space. And obviously, we are having the Kyotos come out in just a couple weeks. Not this Friday, but next. I think it's the 18th.
That is
Yes.
Friday, June 18th. We have the Kyoto Brothers coming out, and let me say it, for one night only, because we have
That's
a wedding
right.
on the 19th. Speaking of sharing your special moments, we are hosting a wedding. Some people occasionally will rent the theater to have their nuptials. So who are we to say no? So the Creature Feature Weekend is making a Creature Feature Friday, and they're bringing in the Kyoto Brothers and a 35 millimeter screening of Critters 1 and 2. And it's essentially becoming CritterCon is what it's been dubbed. So Critters fans literally from all over the country are coming in for this one night to meet the Kyotos and see original screen used props and the amazing photo ops that we'll have, and see these two movies they love on the big screen at a drive-in with the guys who were behind the Krites. So it's looking to be a pretty fun and exciting weekend. I'm not even that big a fan of those. I mean, I think they're fun, but I'm not like into them. But I want to be there just to see the joy and excitement of all these people who are just going to be out of their minds to be there that night.
Oh yeah, screen used props. And the Kyotos really are legends in the industry. And Critters was kind of their launching pad as far as them getting into the industry and doing their thing. But Critters 1, Critters 2, James, our production designer, is going all out. He has a very special place in his heart for the Critters movies. And the idea that we are holding Critters Con just tickles him to death. So if you guys know how the Mahoning does it when it comes to their photo ops, for sure that night is going to be on fire. If you guys are interested in coming out to that event, the gates open early at 3:00 because we have 25 plus vendors. Obviously, the Kyotos will be there signing, doing their thing. We'll be playing Critters 1 after some retro trailers, obviously all on 35 mil. Then the Kyotos are going to be doing a Q&A where you guys can actually come up and ask them questions up on the massive Mahoning screen. And then we get into Critters 2. It's going to be a really fun night. And then we get into the wedding. A lot of people were like, hey, what's going on? You guys should do this on the 19th. You guys should do this on the 19th since you only have one day. We're like, yeah, it's been a wedding that they've been trying to lock in their date for, like 2 years now. I think they've been booked. So it'll be really nice. And for people who are wondering, hey, how does a wedding work at a drive-in? Well, it's really, really cool, if you ask me. Even if I wasn't involved with the drive-in, if I got invited to a drive-in wedding, I'd just be like, oh, this isn't the coolest thing ever. So they're going to have their ceremony right under the screen, get married right under the screen, and then they have a big old event tent that they'll be serving food under. There'll be a couple food trucks there. And, we're going to do our thing as far as once they're done their nuptials. We'll be doing the DJ set. We'll be playing 2 films for them, which we will not name since we won't be licensing them.
They're public domain films.
Yes, exactly. Not that we would have to license them.
They're silent films that are ephemeral.
Yes. But
they're very hardcore cinephiles.
Yes, but it's a really, really great time. We do have some staff who comes out. We keep the concession stand open. We pop popcorn for everybody, what you'd want to get if you were at a drive-in wedding. So it's going to be a really great time, and we may even be running some 35 millimeter for them, which will be a real treat.
We're gonna run that print that we're playing for Patreon on Thursday. One of the great things about this is an inside joke because Virgil knows what movie it is, and it's not what you want to play at a wedding. One of the great things about having a drive-in wedding is 3 words that I'm a big fan of: copious free parking.
Oh yeah.
And if anybody wants to see what a wedding at the Mahoning might look like, if you again watch the At the Drive-In documentary, you can see clips from Sean and Trisha's wedding, which was that the first wedding we had there under the current.
Yep, they will forever be our first wedding. And I don't know if we talked about it on the podcast or not, but they have a little munchkin now. Who is the cutest. Oh yeah,
it's amazing.
And we said it, we've had a lot of fans grow with us, and it's really magical when all of a sudden a couple that you have seen coming to the drive-in over and over again all of a sudden have a newborn in their hand, but that happens a lot.
It keeps happening.
The family grows, it's heartwarming, and it's really what we're all about more than anything. This is about the community and bringing kind of all of our people together. And to see them have such a great time with it and love grow on the property is crazy. There's one of the old owners' family still stops by the lot often, Bill. And the joke he always likes to say is, oh yeah, the Lehighton population boom happened once the Mahoning was built.
I want to have Bill on the show. I want to talk to Bill. He's got a lot of stories from his youth growing up, literally growing up at the drive-in, and the different forms it's taken. He's told me bits and pieces that I'm going to let him tell in full, but there's so much history that we are still learning about the place that he and his sister have. And still trying to hope that somehow out of the top of a closet will fall a box full of photos or old home movies or something.
Yeah, Bill loves to talk. He would be a great person to have on the podcast. And, it's one of those things because the documentary lives out there, we feel like a lot of our history has been presented, but especially with this podcast, we want to give credit where credit is due and really kind of dig deep and, shine a light on the folks who are responsible for keeping the Mahoning here before we got here.
If it weren't for the generations of owners and snack bar operators and projectionists that came before us, we would not be able to do what we're doing right now. So that's part of what I'm doing on my own time is trying to find out who are the various owners and operators and people who work there and what movies did they show and were there ever other things on the lot? Like, Jeff mentioned in the last podcast, the idea that there was at one point plans to put a mini golf course in the back. And Bill has talked to me about, there used to be this thing, I'm going to give a little tease, this thing called the Fairways, which was part of, if not adjacent to the drive-in, that was like a golf ball driving range and batting cages and things like that. And you'd never know that to look now. But, there were modifications and luckily they didn't last or they weren't so severe that the place doesn't really still look like it did when I talked to somebody a few weeks ago. She grew up in the area, moved out of the area and has come back like after 20 years and was so thrilled to see the place still there. And I asked her, how different does the place look from when you used to come here all the time? And she said, really not that different.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. That's kind of cool. That reminds me of a story. There was a fan, I think it was not Thanksgiving, but the weekend before, who really late at night after the movies had gone well off, I was closing everything up, making sure everything's good. And my trailer is right up front under the screen. And there's a single guy just staring up at the screen. I'm like, I better check on this guy and make sure he's okay, that he's not being abducted by aliens right now.
He's having a Travis Walton moment. This beam of light shoots down but he reached for his feet. You're too late.
Exactly. But he was, just checking things out. He wanted to get kind of a scale thing standing underneath the screen, and he was poking around. And I walked up. I said, "Are you all right?" And he says, I came in from wherever it was. It was far. He was staying the weekend and had been following us and all that stuff. And he was standing on the cement slab, which is right up front underneath of the screen. It's not a huge slab. It's just a couple pieces. And I told him, that slab used to hold in the park equipment that we had up here, where kids could come up and, swing on swings and do a little merry-go-round and all that stuff. He's like, "Oh, why did you guys take that out?" I was like, "I was gone before we were here." And I'm sure it was a situation of liability and all of that, unless you were putting in new playground equipment. You don't really want to
my drive-in, the Claremont Drive-In in Claremont, New Hampshire that I went to as a kid, like so many right under the screen where, they were out in the open and the parents could keep an eye on them from their car. There was all that playground equipment, but it was vintage, like 50s or 60s playground equipment. So it was all like hard metal, hard edges, rusty, so many places you could cut and scrape. And the last time I used it, it was the merry-go-round. And there was a bunch of kids on there. What you do on a merry-go-round, you're trying to see how fast you can get it to go and if it'll just, fling kids off. And I tried to get on. I grabbed the handlebars of the bars and I tried to get on, and I was basically dragged in a circle long enough to let me know that I was going to walk away from that. And I never went back on again. I'm like, if that's how these kids are playing, I got no interest.
Welcome to Tetanus Playground.
That's what, it's a tetanus farm. Well, my grade school playground equipment was the same way. Literal shards of rusty metal just hanging out there. There are some drive-ins that still do have playground equipment. It is, as you say, newer, a little bit more rounded edges and safer. But most of them, I think, did away with it due to those liability issues and the fact that a kid could lose a tooth or break a bone or whatever.
Exactly. But we always love it. Those little kind of pieces that remain, or little story pieces that we can point to and be like, hey, you know what this used to be? You'll never believe it. If you're into it, come check this out. But a lot of that, obviously, throughout the whole entire season, there hasn't been a day that goes by where the newbies don't show up and finally have a chance to make it to us, because we become that destination experience for people, where it's not an easy thing for you to just go around the corner to the Mahoning for most. So they plan it out.
It's generally not like, while I'm in the area, I'm going to hit this place. It's not like something in Orlando or New York. It's like we're in the middle of nowhere, which is how the place has been allowed to survive for so long. We're in the middle of nowhere, so you really have to plan a trip or a vacation around it. And it does take people years to get out here. I mean, the legend has grown over the years with the documentary and social media posts, and it, like a lot of things, people finally get around to coming, and then they want to be here all the time. Like somebody coming from, say, I don't know, Salt Lake City or the West Coast on a regular basis.
That does blow my mind, that there are regulars who travel hours upon hours. I mean, it's just like your story in the documentary, where it's like, wow, this is special if people are willing to put aside their whole entire lives to make a weekend, at the Mahoning. So
well, luckily I had a job for many years where I was the boss and I could work remotely and the hours were somewhat flexible, so I could do that. And for me, it was just a matter of, I've said this gently in many directions, you can't wish that something like this is going to happen in the town where you live, because it's not, unless you make it happen, which is feasible. Anybody who wants to do something like we do, if you can find an indoor theater that's amenable to guest programming or getting sponsorship or something, you can do cool, eclectic programming, but otherwise you have to go where it is. So I knew that nobody near me was going to play the kind of thing the Mahoning was doing and in the way they were doing it. So I just decided, well, I'm going to go there. And I think a lot of people realize that it's an expense, and it's a matter of time and travel and all that, but you really don't get what we do the way we do it anywhere else.
Yeah.
Good evening. It's intermission time, and during the next 10 minutes, we invite you to visit our refreshment stand located in the center of the drive-in. Our service is friendly and quick. You'll find hot dogs, hamburgers, pizza, your favorite candies, hot and cold beverages, and other delicious snacks. So add to your fun of watching the movie. Visit our refreshment stand right now during our 10-minute intermission. We're glad to have you with us tonight, and we hope you'll come to see us often. It's great to get out to the movies.
Country girls, cold moonshine, and fine country music. Together, they make up a hot summer in Barefoot County.
Hot rods, warm lips, and white lightning, all filmed in the Carolinas, full of spicy action and rib-tickling comedy. Brand new from the Preacher Man Corporation. Rated R, Barefoot County.
You know, that's what you need to do. Spend a hot summer in Barefoot County.
Here it is, the knee-slappingest tune-filled star-studded country western get-together ever to hit the screen. It's Pee Wee King's Country Western Hoedown, jam-packed with 33 hit songs, performed by 15 of the greatest country western stars ever to be seen in one place. You'll see and hear Red Stewart doing the ever-popular Slowpoke.
Keep me waiting till it's getting aggravating. You're a slowpoke.
You'll thrill to Neil Burris and Bonnie Sloan singing Making Believe. You'll rave about Jack Leonard doing You'll See the Day.
You see the day.
This is just a sampling of the colorful, crazy quilt of comedy and song you'll see in Pee Wee King's Country Western Hoedown in glowing Eastman color.
That's all, cause there ain't no more.
Well, speaking of people coming in from out of town, we got some news this week, or some news dropped via the social medias. A little guy named Joe Bob's coming to town, which we've been kind of poking at throughout the podcast. We haven't mentioned it very much on the social medias, but the planning for it has been hot and heavy for the last couple months. But that show, that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday show, the Joe Bob Jamboree, sold out so insanely quickly. And far exceeded Joe Bob and their team's expectations, that they added a Thursday. And Mark, why don't you be the one to tell them what we are going to be playing after Joe Bob's How Rednecks Saved Hollywood show?
Okay, I could go on and on and on about this, as you well know. We're starting the evening with Joe Bob, as you just said, doing this slideshow lecture that he's taken around the country to various indoor theaters called How Rednecks Saved Hollywood. And it's about how, you think of Hollywood as high-minded and classy and erudite and intellectual, but it was films based around Southern simple values and charm that made a lot of money and swung Hollywood back into profitability. And the film that we're showing, which was not my choice, mind you, this was selected by Joe Bob's people, is Smokey and the Bandit.
Finally.
Which is a film that is huge for me. And I've wanted us to run that for many years and just hasn't gotten around to it yet. But I'm a huge Burt Reynolds fan. I'm a huge fan of that movie. I saw it at the drive-in with my father when I was 3 years old, when it was brand new. I still remember what it looked like on the screen. I still remember the cop taking the 10-100. I still remember that the Trans Am jumping that bridge that was out.
Oh, yeah.
That movie is ingrained in who I am and what I do. And it's not ridiculous to say the reason I was going to the Mahoning all the time, making those 6.5-hour drives, was because I was a graduate of the Needham Reynolds School of Long Haul Driving. That and Cannonball mean more to me than most people will understand. So the fact that we're finally showing it and it's with Joe Bob is pretty amazing to me.
Yeah.
Anybody coming just for Smokey, please know that it will be a higher ticket than you normally would pay to see a movie at the drive-in because Joe Bob is there, and it will be the second feature. So we're probably looking at like an 11 p.m. showtime for that. But I'm over the moon. I've planned out a DJ set, 2 to 3 hour DJ set between when we open the doors and when the Joe Bob presentation starts. It's all going to be 60s, 70s country. I hate country, so it was a challenge, but I was able to put together a playlist of all songs that I would listen to and enjoy. A lot of songs from the kind of movies that he'll be talking about, probably some radio spots from those kind of movies. I'll be donating trailers for the pre-show that'll play before Smokey that will be Burt Reynolds or Hicksploitation trailers. So I'm going to do my part to make this the best screening of Smokey we can do, shy of having, Burt Reynolds, Jerry Reed, and the Trans Am under the screen.
Well, it is. It's a dream come true. The idea of bringing Joe Bob and Smokey together is kind of a match made in heaven. And our promotional piece that we'll be dropping on Friday when the event announces is amazing. It's Joe Bob with a Smokey Reynolds mustache. So I joked that we should give out fake mustaches at the gate just to get the photo.
That is a completely feasible idea.
Yes, I'm in. Get on ordering those hundreds of mustaches. But yeah, there's so much we can talk about with Joe Bob, and I think this is a good place to unpack a little bit of it. For those of you guys that are listening, you get a little bit of the inside dirt anyway. So
and for some people, we will explain for you in just a few moments who Joe Bob Briggs is. Because he's a guy who's been around since the 80s. He has a huge following, maybe bigger now than ever. But it's one of those things. There's a meme that I saw on Facebook, and it's like, Joe Bob Briggs, you either love him or have no idea who he is. And when I'm telling friends and family about it, oh, we've got the biggest show we've ever done. Oh, really? What is it? Joe Bob Briggs is coming. Pardon?
Crickets.
Other people you tell, they're just like, oh, how did that happen? Where does your Joe Bob knowledge or experience, where does it come into your life?
Certainly the Monster Vision days. I'm a big cable TV, late night TV guy. That's where I got a lot of my tastes and introduction to a lot of genres. And Joe Bob was right up there with his TNT Monster Vision show. I remember those late nights watching Friday the 13th marathons and things like that. And having him pop in, his whole kind of thing is he's just a host. He's watching the movies along with you. He's very much one with the audience, kind of your down home boy, even though now that we've met Joe Bob, we know that that's somewhat of a stage act. But what he represents, I think, as far as fandom in film runs so deep, deeper than we could ever describe, because again, when somebody's there with you, kind of holding your hand through these massive, life-changing cinematic experiences, holy crap, does that make an impact? And, Joe Bob having his resurgence, Shudder, kind of pulling his career back, with reviving pretty much what the Monster Vision show was with the last Drive-In.
It feels just like Monster Vision. I
Oh,
just
it's
started
perfect.
watching them recently to get caught up, and I'm like, this feels. It's obviously done by people who grew up on that show and loved it. It feels like he never went off the air, basically.
Yeah, their team does an amazing job. It's so true to the fandom. It's so amazing because I say it, like, we are very grassroots in how the Mahoning has grown into what it is. And a lot of the people that we align with kind of are the same way, you know? And Joe Bob and what the last Drive-In team has done was built this fandom back to a fever pitch. And we really felt that when we sold the tickets and they crashed every site that we have. But
yeah, about that. Sorry, folks. We really didn't know that was going to happen. We knew it would be a big surge. I was actually, Val was driving down. We were on our way to the theater the Friday this went on sale. We knew I would be on the road at that time. So I had the laptop open. I was using my phone as a Wi-Fi hotspot. I was ready to answer questions people had. And it was just a melee. It was just that site that we had never had a problem with before suddenly could not handle thousands of people clicking the same button at the same time. And we apologize from the bottom of our cold hearts about how that went and all of that. But it was just like, we were doing everything we could on our side of the fence to try to, help give people explanations on how to do things and how to make it work. And we were talking to Ticket Leap and we were doing all this stuff. And it was just like, I guess from a distance, somebody with a bit more cynicism would have said, well, of course that was going to happen. But I think we just thought that they would sell out very, very quickly, and not that it would be what it was. But, Joe Bob's people saw that and they said, okay, so there's interest here. And we saw it and said, this is going to be a hell of a show. And we're going to do everything we can to make it an unforgettable experience for the people who do attend, and something that is so wonderful and successful that Joe Bob's team wants to just keep doing it over and over and over again with us.
Yeah. And that was really the idea behind this Thursday show, which is good to kind of pull the curtain back, because when we had those ticketing issues, I went to Joe Bob and his team and I said, look, I have this idea for Thursday. I said, why don't we release kind of a dress rehearsal night where those people who missed out on those Saturday tickets could come still see the same show they were getting Saturday. It would be kind of a pre-run for us, and be a way to kind of give back to the people that may have missed out on those tickets. But that kind of snowballed into the redneck show that Joe Bob does, and possibly bringing that to the Mahoning. And it's going to be really nice on Thursday because we are doing a VIP barbecue dinner with Joe Bob, just like we're doing for the film festival, which is kind of perfect with Smokey. Yeah, it's going to be a really nice night for people. And what I'm hoping is, because the ticket price will not be as high as the weekend, is that it's a good one for the locals. I knew that when those tickets sold out immediately, that it was the people from all over the area, the Joe Bob fans from all over the world, and the locals just kind of got pushed to the side. Where now that we're doing this Thursday show, I mean, unless you're coming into town a day early, it's going to be the locals coming out. So it'll be really nice to be able to do this. And hopefully, the people that were upset with how the ticketing went the first time around have no issues coming out on Thursday and enjoying that show.
I mean, in some cases, there were people who, because Saturday is the most desirable date for most people, because it's the live version of the show that they love, seeing the last Drive-In performed and recorded live in front of you. A lot of people really, that's what that sold out really fast. So there's a lot of folks who have Friday and Sunday tickets and are kind of looking for suggestions on what to do with their day on Saturday. And I say, Knoebels is an excellent place to spend a day. This is a way for somebody to do Thursday, Friday. Like, I actually talked to somebody online who was having ticket issues, and they learned about the Thursday, and they were going to maybe try to do Thursday, Friday rather than something else. It is also a way for people who just missed out on tickets entirely to get that experience. He will be on the lot. Joe Bob and Darcy, I understand, will be on the lot the entire time. They will be signing things anytime they're not on stage.
Yep.
You can take photos with them. Do we have the professional photo op as well on Thursday like we do Friday and Saturday?
So I don't believe there's going to be a VIP photo op tied in. The VIP would be for the campers. The VIP would be for the barbecue dinner. And Joe Bob and Darcy would be set up at the tables like we normally do with our guests.
And so people know, whenever we do, there is the VIP photo op, and that is you're with Joe Bob and Darcy on the set of the last Drive-In. A professional photographer takes the photo. You get a printout or a flash drive copy of it. You can still take photos with them. The VIP, the difference is that professional photo that gets printed. Even the day that we're doing that, they are still doing photos at their table. So I know sometimes some conventions, it's a VIP photo op and that's all you can do with them. They're not like that. Any day that they're there, this weekend that we have the Jamboree, you can meet them, you can get autographs, you can get photos with them. I just wanted to make that clear for everybody.
JB is a down home boy for sure. We've had some guests out that were a little bit private and wasn't with the fans as much as we had hoped, but this is going to be a situation where Joe Bob is hanging out with the fans, walking around the lot, doing his thing. Even when we first met, he sat there, ate a burger. When he came up to the drive-in the first time, he was sitting in the radio booth chair and getting all excited about the 35 millimeter. I could tell right away in that meeting that this was going to be the perfect event. You know, the Mahoning does what it does. There's a reason why Joe Bob promotes us and has been saying the fan favorite Mahoning Drive-In Theater is because the people that watch the last drive-in are the fans that we have also been able to build. So it's got a great crossover. And I think the idea of us hosting this on an annual level makes so much sense. And Thursday is going to be a great way for us to impress not just the fans, but Joe Bob to be able to just roll through this weekend with such ease, you know, and it's going to be a great time. Memories for sure.
We're also a fan favorite drive-in because he's been pestered by people who are fans of our drive-in for like several years now.
Oh,
when
yeah.
you coming to the Mahoning? When are you going to the Mahoning? Didn't somebody start some viral graphic even saying Mutant Palooza was going to happen at the Mahoning? And it was just like, it was not done by us or Joe Bob's people.
Now on Twitter, they have the Mutant Fam. I think it's at Mutant.
Yeah.
You know, it has all the fans come together. They do virtual screenings of the last drive-in. They actually run their own film festival as well. But they reached out, I think it was last year or the year before, and was like, hey, here's this graphic of Joe Bob drinking his beer, sitting in his chair, doing his thing with the massive Mahoning screen behind him with the graphic Mutant Palooza. I guess at that point it was 2020. And yeah, that got the ball rolling. How this all really happened is very, very destined, just like everything with the Mahoning. Obviously, we were on Joe Bob's radar. We had reached out to him to try to book him in 2019. And at that time, we decided not to do it. It would have been a little different scenario. I think he was just jumping on board with Last Drive-In again, and that was starting to pick up steam. But his team, the production team of The Last Drive-In, came out to watch a movie on the lot.
Can I break in and tell you the true story?
That's right. Yes.
Okay, everybody listening, don't believe this whitewash this guy is giving you right now. This smoke and mirrors cover story. It's my fault that Joe Bob is coming out. And I'm gonna take the credit for this. I'm gonna be bold. Okay, yeah, we had been contacting him for several years trying to come out. So that did happen. But the way this event came out was that it was the beginning of the season, or no, it may have even been, no, it was late last season, 2020. One of the things I do is I contact various cool companies to see if they will donate items for our nightly raffles. What I keep saying to Val is, if you're foolish enough to have a Facebook targeted ad that pops up in my Facebook feed, you're going to get a message from me saying, hey, you should give some stuff to the drive-in. So one of those Facebook ads that came up was Ship to Shore Phono Co. It's a company that releases new pressings of mostly old soundtracks on LP, on vinyl. And they had like the Frankenhooker soundtrack in that ad. And I was like, ooh, that would be great for our drive-in. So I contacted them. And I found out that the person I was talking to was actually the producer for The Last Drive-In. And he wanted to see if we could work a deal at our Monster Mania show, which was going to be the last show of 2020 in October, to maybe do a record release for some new song that was going to be released from the show. Johnny Brennan had a new song coming out, or a new record of a song that he had done for The Last Drive-In that they were releasing, and they thought maybe they could do a record release party and have some characters from the show come out. And then I started talking, well, maybe we could have Joe Bob come out at this end of the year party, end of the year show. And I talked to him on the phone on my drive from, I think at that point it was still New Hampshire to Pennsylvania. And it turns out the producer of The Last Drive-In went to college like one town over from where I did in New Hampshire for many years, from where I lived for 25 years.
Crazy.
So we had some mutual common ground and we talked about it. And so it started evolving into, well, maybe Joe Bob will come out as just a guest at this Monster Mania show that we're doing, or at our final weekend, we were having Bill Moseley out or something, and they came out to sort of scout out the drive-in and see what our operation was like. Now your story becomes reality, and you can take it.
Well, that's right. I forgot about that whole connection piece.
It all came from me asking for free stuff.
Well, that's the connection. That's how it happens, But the guys showed up on the lot. Justin, producer who runs Ship to Shore, and they fell in love with the theater. They're walking through the 35. I'm giving them the tour, and we just started chatting about the possibilities. And at that point, I had Tom Atkins booked for the end of the season and still wasn't sure if he was comfortable enough to come out to what would have been a Night of the Creeps and Halloween 3 screening, a legendary one. And our thought was, holy crap, let's bring Joe Bob and Halloween 3 together finally.
And have him host Halloween 3 finally.
Yes, which fans have been dying for forever.
That was sort of briefly in the cards.
It was out there where we were going to kind of blend the two events, and then it got to be a thing where it's like, hey, let's plan our own event. Let's take our time and plan something for next year. And then the Jamboree was born. 3 days. The idea is it's kind of a mutant meetup. The Joe Bob fans are called mutants, so they can come from all over the place, meet up together, meet Joe Bob, meet Darcy, embrace the fandom. But the mind splitter was the idea of bringing the last drive-in to the Mahoning, which we are all fans of Joe Bob and the Last Drive-In. We know what our fans are doing when they're not at the theater on Friday.
Some of the staff actually watch that show on their laptops. Not the ones who are actively working.
That story, that's the best.
So my favorite is we've got Andre Gower out, who is a hero to some of the people on the staff because they're mega fans of the Monster Squad. And Andre, between signing and meeting people while the film is playing, is sitting in the projection booth, and he's talking to Jeff about old movies, which was really fun to watch and participate in. Jeff and Andre are talking about Cary Grant and old time Hollywood and great leading men and Brando and Bogart and all that. And JT comes in and he sets up his laptop in the chair in front of our trailer reels, which is sort of on the other side of the doorway from Andre. And he's watching The Last Drive-In muted because he wants to see what the movies are going to be, because it's always a big secret before the films roll on each new live episode when it streams on Shudder. You don't know what the movies are going to be. They just give some quotes. Right. So he's sitting there and we're trying to figure out what this movie is. And I actually have a photo of JT staring at his laptop with Joe Bob on the screen while Andre Gower's in the background. And he's and JT's this huge Monster Squad fan. Like if you go back and you listen to our interview with Andre, JT, and if you're a Patreon member, you can watch the video. JT shows like these Monster Squad drawings that he did when he was a kid, and he wrote a script for a sequel and all this, and he's totally ignoring this childhood hero because Joe Bob's on. So if that does not tell you how much we love Joe Bob and are serious about this at the drive-in, like I used to watch him on Movie Channel back in the 80s when I could see it. I still have a tape of his Memorial Day weekend double feature of Double Agent 73 and Deadly Weapons in reverse order. I've got the Joe Bob books he put out in the 80s of his reviews from the Dallas newspaper. I mean, I go way back with Joe Bob. A lot of us do. Some of us have no idea who he is. They're mostly the kids, but we're very serious about this. And so the idea of those people coming to the drive-in is a big deal. The idea of them actually doing the show on our grounds is mind-blowing. And originally the thought was we would do the films on film. Spoiler alert, we're not doing the films on film aside from Thursday Night with Smokey, because they want to be able to break into the films the way they do on the show at specific moments, cut back to Joe Bob and Darcy commenting on the film. You can't do that with film. Originally, we were talking about with Justin that maybe between each reel he would comment, but the show has since evolved into a much more professional, high-end theatrical presentation than we originally talked about.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's for people who are fans of Joe Bob, it's what you will expect of an on-screen show from Joe Bob. It's going to be a really great time. It's going to elevate what we do once again, just like the Bruce Campbell event, to be able to raise the bar and put on an event of this status and level. It allows us to do the same in the future and look to do some bigger things in the future. We've been joking about getting really close to some dream guests that will just blow the Mahoning fans' minds. And the more that we do this, it kind of becomes old hat. This is This is what we've grown into, and we're loving embracing it. And even though it's not everybody's cup of tea to want to come to a big giant event at a drive-in movie theater, and they'd rather have that intimate experience, we've done a great job balancing the two. You know, you can come out on any given weekend and get the intimate setting, or if you want to come to a jamboree blowout, you have that option too, you know?
Yeah, I mean, not every show is going to be guests and photo ops and live music and Q&As. I mean, we love that we can do that now and have that convention experience. Some people just want 2 movies and an intermission. We still do that too. Thanksgiving was like the old days. Frankly, attendance was like the old days a little bit too, but it was 2 movies. It was 35 trailers, 35 millimeter. We didn't run 35 trailers before the movie. That's trailer trauma, which
Yes.
which they've spilled it now. The Exhumed will be bringing another trailer trauma back. That was one of the most fun nights we've had there. It was 2.5 hours of wacky, wild trailers. It was great. But yeah, every show isn't going to be this huge extravaganza, but we learn as we go how to do these kind of shows better. How bringing people in to do the stage or the lighting or the sound or certain things that we don't have the facility to do now, we're building to be able to get some of these people that we're not going to talk about. We joke about someday we can have so-and-so come out. But I think the more things we do like this, the more feasible it is to do that, because we're making those connections with different vendors who can help provide the technical aspects that we don't always have on site. I don't think we always want to have, you know, a Woodstock style stage under the screen, but we want to have the ability to put one up if we needed one.
Absolutely. And you guys know it. There will be some amazing sponsors on board for Joe Bob, some like-minded folks that we already work with, some mind-blowing deals that we're working out right now, connecting to Joe Bob and merchandise and all that other stuff. So for fans of the Mahoning, this should be one of those things that they look at as just like, holy crap. Just like that reaction when we announced last year that Bruce Campbell was going to be on the lot. It's very much that same situation of, oh my gosh, you guys are bringing one of the kings home.
And if you don't care about this at all, if you're somebody who just wants, you know, a double feature of Elaine May movies at the drive-in, I can say these shows pay for the other shows. If you're like, well, the lot's really muddy all the time, these shows pay for new gravel. So it's like, it's one of those things where, like, if you like certain indie actors and they go and they do a Michael Bay movie, it's like, yeah, well, that Michael Bay movie allows them to do the next 5 small movies. So we're doing this because we love it. It is also financially beneficial to do shows like this so that we can help, I don't know, pay the staff and pay for upgrades to a place that's been there since 1949, as we try to do as we go along. And despite, you know, all of the merchandising with this Joe Bob thing and the advertising and the ticket prices and all that, be very aware that Joe Bob truly loves the fans. In the conversations that I've been privy to, in the conference call that I couldn't believe I was privy to, just because it's like, I used to love this guy on TV and now I'm kind of just talking with him. In that, it was always about how can we get, and not for it's in terms of selling tickets, but how can we get the most people on the lot so that the most people who want to do this are able to? How can we make sure we exclude the fewest number of people? That's why they announced the tickets so far in advance of when they actually went on sale, is he said, I don't want anybody to not know about this when it happens and miss out on it. I mean, there's only so many tickets we can sell safely to get people in there, and so that it's still, you know, there's elbow room and it's fun. But he really wants to make sure everybody who can go, everybody who can go knows about it. Adding the extra day was about that. You know, how many more people now can go who might have been shut out before?
Right.
I used to see Joe Bob show up at the Alamo Drafthouse in Yonkers to introduce movies and screen movies. And when the movies were running and after the movie for like an hour, he would hang out in the lobby and just chat with people because he actually likes these movies. It's not really, I mean, the Joe Bob thing is a character. It's not his real name. He's a serious journalist who's written books about other things too, but he actually likes these movies like we do, and he knows about these movies. So if you want to talk to him about Chainsaw 2, he's going to meet you or exceed your level of enthusiasm and knowledge on that.
I mean, here's the thing. He's one of us. The one thing was very clear when they came to test out the projection for the Thursday show is this guy loves drive-ins. He's one of us on that level, regardless of how big and famous and well-known he may be. He is a guy who truly stands for the preservation of the drive-in culture. And we have become huge mouthpieces for that. And to bring us together, I look at it very much as a passing of the torch not in any way that he's going away, but just that we can now walk with that honor of saying, you know, one of the biggest icons in drive-in culture has come to us to try to shine a light again on the drive-in culture. And it warms our heart. That reminds us again what this whole venture is about. It doesn't matter how big the shows are. It doesn't matter what the turnouts are. It doesn't matter how much merch we sell. It's those moments when people are sharing it with their kids, when they're there as a family, when they're loving the experience. It's making those memories and strengthening the love of the drive-in culture that means so much to us. So it's going to be an amazing show, to say the least. Again, if you guys are hearing this, we're hoping that the tickets are plentiful for people. We don't expect it to go as fast as the weekend show, just because it is a Thursday, but it certainly will be an in-demand show. So if you guys want to come out, meet Joe Bob, don't want to deal with the craziness of the weekend, it's a great opportunity to do so. And if you want to camp with us and eat some barbecue, go for that VIP, baby.
And I will say I have been in discussions with the culinary experts at the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, and there will be themed food for Smokey. There has to be. And it's going, people have asked Tom Bafulco, actually, who does amazing, consistently amazing and regular work for us now in terms of our posters and graphics. He asked if we would be selling a certain integral to the film menu item. And I said, absolutely. We've already been talking about it.
Yep. Well, that's the beauty of this Thursday show, is it's Mark's personal dream come true. And when I got the news that it would be that was my reaction was, yeah, I'm thinking this is going to be a home run. And that's the case with a lot of people. You know, it's a very special movie to a lot of people. And if you guys know how the Mahoning does it, we are going to make this the coolest Smokey event on the planet. So come on out, have a great time with us. And for sure, we're going to have a ton of other events announcing. It'll be nice that we can get this Thursday show out, because then we can really push on with everything post Joe Bob.
Yeah, I know. It's
a lot.
We're always living. I tell people I'm living in the present and the future simultaneously at any given moment. So I'm not always sure what's this weekend again? What's next week? I'm always sort of in that mode, because I'm trying to get things, and all of us are. You know, Sandy's getting merch for future events and dealing with vendors for future events, and Beth is working on food specials for future events, and Val's over here working on, you know, additional food specials or desserts she's doing for certain things, and we're working on the Patreon. There's a lot going on. Right. But Joe Bob is such a gigantic event where we're going to need so many people and so many outside entities coming together that it's always this present thing. So it's going to be weird once that passes and we're just focusing on just, you know, standard sized shows for the time being. Exhumed has just, if you follow us online or follow Exhumed Films online, they have just released this amazing t-shirt, 2 t-shirts actually, that are concert tour style shirts for their Tunnel Vision Tuesday shows. One for the shows they did in 2020. So on the front, it's a really cool graphic based on some of the films they ran. In the back, it looks like tour dates, but it's all the dates and titles. They've just released that and one for 2021. So if you can find that graphic, you now know everything Exhumed is doing until October as far as their Tunnel Vision Tuesday shows go. And they're amazing. But that also takes a little heat off us because it's just like, well, now everybody knows what's happening through October.
Yeah, if it were only all that easy, right? But we are going to be still trickling out the events just like we always do every year. We're about to push into the August events, and, you know, I hate to say it, but with the events that Harry's planning, with some of the plans that we have at the end of the season, I don't think this will be the last big event of the season. But it's going to be a really great year, and I love promoting the shows on the air just like Mark does. And we just go through 1 month's calendar of titles, and it's mind-blowing. We have to stress, this is just 1 month of many. So you guys have a lot of madness to look forward to, and we have a lot of madness to prepare for.
And now, folks, it's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.
So it's always great talking with you, Mark. It's always great touching base with the fans and talking drive-in culture love. It's how we do it. And I think we'll be back next week for another one. Hopefully we'll get Jeff in on that one. But on that note, Jeff, take it away, my friend.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for coming out tonight to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. We hope you'll come back and see us again real soon. The exit is on the right-hand side of the screen at the front of the field, and most importantly, have a very safe trip home. Good night, and God bless you.